Christianity. It's a faith that has shaped empires, inspired some of the world's greatest art, and guided the lives of billions. But have you ever stopped to think about how it all began? Let's go all the way back to the start to understand its incredible origin story.
I mean, just look at this number. Today, Christianity is the world's largest religion, with over 2 billion followers. To put that into perspective, that's more than 1 out of every 4 people on the entire planet. The scale is just absolutely staggering. So, that brings us to the big question, right? How did this happen? How does a small, often persecuted movement from a tiny corner of the world grow to become this dominant global faith? Well, that is the incredible journey we're about to trace. Okay, so our story starts way back in the 1st century AD. We're in a region called Judea, which at the time was under the control of the massive Roman Empire. This is where it all began.
Now, to really get Christianity, you have to start with its roots in ancient Judaism. As you can see here, they share a ton of foundational beliefs and scriptures. But one single incredibly powerful idea created a brand new path. The belief that Jesus of Nazareth wasn't just another prophet, but the long-awaited Messiah. That was the game changer.
And the life of this central figure, Jesus, is the absolute bedrock of the faith. You have his birth, his public ministry of teaching and performing miracles, his crucifixion by the Roman authorities, and, this is crucial, what Christians believe was his resurrection from the dead. These events are the core of everything. But here's the thing. Jesus' death wasn't the end of the story. Nope. In a lot of ways, it was just the beginning. The responsibility now fell to his followers, the first messengers, to carry his teachings to the world.
And this quote right here, known as the Great Commission, is basically the starting gun for Christian expansion. It's a direct command from the resurrected Jesus to his followers. Don't keep this message to yourselves. Go spread it everywhere. So how'd they actually do that? Well, it happened in stages. First, the original disciples started preaching locally. Then, as people began to believe, these small, tight-knit communities started popping up. But the real catalyst for explosive growth, that was the Apostle Paul. He made the absolutely crucial decision to take the message beyond the Jewish world to the Gentiles, that's the non-Jews, and that sent it spreading like wildfire across the entire Roman Empire. Now, as you can imagine, this rapid growth did not go unnoticed, and it definitely wasn't easy. The next chapter in this story is a truly dramatic reversal, from a persecuted minority to the official religion of the empire itself. For the first few hundred years, being a Christian was incredibly dangerous. The Roman authorities often saw this new faith as a threat, and that led to some really intense periods of persecution. But here's the paradox. That shared risk, the secret meetings, the total reliance on each other for survival, it created this powerful sense of community that, ironically, just fueled its growth and made it even more resilient. I mean, just look at this timeline. This shows one of the most stunning turnarounds in all of history. After nearly 250 years of persecution, the Roman emperor himself, Constantine, converts. And then, get this, in less than a single lifetime, by 380 AD, it becomes the official state religion of the very same empire that once tried to stamp it out. That is an absolutely incredible turn of events. Okay, so with this newfound power and acceptance, the faith needed to get organized. The next big step was to formalize its core beliefs, create a unified set of scriptures, and establish a clear structure. And the main tool they used for this were these things called ecumenical councils. You can think of them as massive, high-stakes meetings where church leaders from all over the known world would gather to debate and vote on the very definition of Christianity. What do they really believe? Which texts were sacred? These councils were going to shape the entire future of the faith. And the outcomes of these councils were monumental. They hammered out the core doctrines that defined what it meant to be a Christian. And over several centuries, they officially decided which texts would make it into the New Testament. At the same time, you had this other crucial movement, monasticism. Monks created these dedicated communities that became the guardians of this knowledge, meticulously copying and preserving all these sacred texts for future generations. But as the faith grew bigger and more widespread, so did the disagreements. This period of unity eventually gave way to major fractures that would split Christianity into the large branches that we still see today. And there were 2 really huge splits. The first one, in the year 1054, was the Great Schism.
This is what divided the church into its eastern and western branches. Then, about 500 years later, the Protestant Reformation caused another massive split, this time within Western Christianity.
So, the Great Schism of 1054 had been brewing for centuries, fueled by cultural and political differences. But it all came to a head over one key issue. Who's in charge? The Church in the West, led by the Pope in Rome, claimed authority over all Christians. The Church in the East, centered in Constantinople, rejected that claim. This disagreement finally led to a formal split, creating what we now know as Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy.
Then, fast forward to the 16th century. In the middle of all this social and political change in Europe, a German monk named Martin Luther publicly challenged some of the core practices of the Catholic Church. His protest basically lit a match, sparking the Protestant Reformation, a movement that rapidly fractured Western Christianity and gave birth to its third major branch, Protestantism.
And all of this history, the humble start, the crazy growth, the persecutions, and the divisions, it all brings us right here to the present day, and to Christianity as this incredibly complex and diverse modern global religion.
Looking at Christianity today, you can literally see the legacy of those historical splits. It isn't just one single thing. It's a whole family of traditions, with Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, and Eastern Orthodoxy being the largest branches, along with tons of other smaller denominations. So what we see today is a faith of just staggering diversity, practiced by billions of people whose influence on global culture is just undeniable. And in a cool historical echo of those early councils, there's a modern trend called the ecumenical movement, which is all about building bridges and trying to foster more unity between all these different Christian traditions.
This incredible journey, from a tiny sect in Judea to a global religion of billions, has been defined by constant change and adaptation. After 2,000 years of growth, division, and transformation, you can bet the story is far from over. Which leaves us with the ultimate question: what will its next chapter look like?